Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that when it was 18 years old briefly advised Napoleon. Speaking of Napoleon, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Napoleon's Imperium from Compass Games. In Napoleon's Imperium from Compass Games, 2 to 8 players take on the roles of the various belligerents during the Napoleonic Wars from 1798 to 1815. Players will play either one of two factions, either France and its allies, consisting of Spain, Austria, and the Ottoman Empire, or the coalition of Britain, Russia, Prussia, and the Nordic countries. The game board is a map of Napoleonic Europe. It is a paper map in 2 parts, and around the center you have various tracks to keep track of players' incomes. You also have place for their battle cards and their purchase area. Now, as I say, the game lasts from 1798 to 1815. These are the various turns of the game. Each turn takes a while, so you can play shorter games if you'd like. But essentially, in the first turn, you're kind of limited on what you can do. But basically, a turn consists of a few different steps. Turn order in the game goes France, Britain, the Ottomans, the Nordic countries, Spain, Prussia, Austria, and finally Russia. As I say, there are 3 phases in each turn. First, you have the kind of income purchase phase. During this, you're going to look at your income, which is based on the territories you control on the board. You're going to go ahead and buy any units you want to buy that will come on the board at the end of your turn. Now, these units that you're buying consist of infantry, artillery, cavalry. You can also buy fleets, and you can also buy specific units to certain nations. For instance, the British can buy riflemen, the Ottomans can buy camels, etc., etc. The second phase is the attack phase. You can use your movement that is printed on your counters to move units into an attack position, into moving them into another space where your enemy's units are located. Once they are there, you can go ahead and initiate combat. Now, combat plays out in a pretty straightforward way. It's a simultaneous combat. The attacker is going to roll first, and the defender will roll first for all of their units, even the ones that have just been eliminated. But essentially, you look at the attack value if you're attacking and the defense value if you're defending. You go ahead and say if your attack value is 5, you would roll a number of dice equal to the number of those counters you have, and whatever hit at a 5 or lower scores a hit. The defender then will do the same thing looking at their defense number, and then they will score hits. Then you will go back and forth until either side is eliminated. Now, you also have the option of bringing commanders into these battles. Commanders can enhance the stats. You can pick, one kind of type of formation, infantry, artillery, cavalry, etc. You go ahead and you would attach them to boost either their attack value or the defense value for that roll by 1. You can also use them to move to the battle by attaching them just for the movement value, but you can only use them for either their attack, defense, or their movement value. Now, critically in battle, you can only ever roll 9 dice, a total of 9 dice at any given round. Now, as soon as an army is defeated, the player that was defeated draws a battle card. Now, each player has their own battle card deck around the board. You draw a battle card and read whatever is on it. There may be all sorts of different things that happen. Some of these can be good things and positive things that will help that player. Other things are not so good. So this is kind of an event deck that you draw whenever you lose a battle. Now, you can attack as many times as you want, anywhere around the board, as long as you're within your movement limit. And there is also naval attacks. Naval attacks are a little bit different. Essentially, you bring your navies to bear. Again, you roll off them just like you roll off on land battles, but at the end, you don't draw a battle card if you're the loser. If you're the winner, you get a card that says you gain 10 points. Also, if you have 5 surviving ships at the end of a battle, you can go ahead and roll to see if you capture any of the enemy's ships. Now, the final step is called the movement step. Now, you actually move to attack during the attack step, but this is kind of like non-combat movement. Essentially, you can move your units anywhere on the board that have, that printed movement value. You can move up to their printed movement value. And then you can also take all the units that you purchased and you place them in your capital, or if it's a fleet, at any accessible port. Now, if you capture an enemy capital, you can actually get a card that gives you a point boost for capturing enemy capitals. If you capture other territories, you get the flag that's on that territory, the national flag that's on that territory, that denotes that you have, gained a major victory there. Now, also during battles too, your commanders that you attach there, you have one major commander and a couple of minor commanders. If the minor commanders are eliminated, then they're out of the game. If your major commander is, if your army is defeated, your major commander is there. He actually is taken prisoner, and he can be essentially ransomed back, or that is to say, he can be paroled, or he can be held by the enemy for a while. So it delays on exactly when your commander is going to come back, and there's a kind of some formulas for that as well. There's a couple of ways you can win the game. As I said, the game goes from 1798 to 1815, and if ever one side or the other captures 3 of the enemy capitals, then obviously they have won. But also, too, the other way is you can negotiate exactly when the game is going to end, what turn, what year the game is going to end. You go ahead and play to the end of that year, and then whoever has the most points in terms of cards that they've collected, battle flags they've collected, various other things. If you've got the most points, then you and your coalition win Napoleon's Imperium. Now, there is a ton more going on here. There's some optional rules. There's spies. You can use spies to go after your enemies. There's some various other things, and there's a lot of rules specifically governing a lot of the systems I've been talking about. So Napoleon's Imperium, this is, well, first of all, I'm a sucker for Napoleonic era games. I really enjoy war games in the Napoleonic era, and I was kind of excited. The designer of Napoleon's Imperium actually contacted me out of the blue and said he really liked what I did and he wanted to see what I thought of his game, so he sent me this copy. And I was really excited to play it. I think it's beautiful. Now, it's a paper map, but I'm not a fan of paper maps. It's a big map. I really don't like paper maps, and I don't have plexiglass. And maybe when I land and I settle somewhere, I'll get one and use that. But for right now, I don't have that, and I'm not a fan of paper maps, but that is what it is, I think a mounted map maybe have made this game a little cost prohibitive, because this is a big, giant game. This is a huge game, and at its heart, it really kind of feels like, and it kind of plays like Axis and Allies in the Napoleonic era. It's a Napoleonic Axis and Allies. That's basically what it feels. You buy your units, have your attacks, your non-combat units, you place your units back out there. So the formula is very much like that, and I'd be kind of interested to know exactly how the game is, how much the game was influenced by this. I know the designer's been working on it probably since like the 90s or something. There's a photograph of there from like 95 playing the game. So he's been working on this game for quite a while. And I got to tell you, I don't think that's a bad thing that it's like Axis and Allies. I like Axis and Allies, and I like the system. Basically, you've got attack values, defense values, and movement, and this is a very simple part of the game. And it's not simple in that it's bad, it's straightforward, and I like that. And I think that aspect of the game is really, really fun, and it's a big game. But I think the thing I like most about this game probably is the battle cards. I really like how you're playing with the battle cards, and you lose a battle and you draw a battle card, and you don't know. It's kind of a crapshoot, right? Because sometimes they're good things, sometimes they're bad things. You may get like treaties that say you can't attack the guy that you were just at war with. It's kind of an enforced truce there, or peace, so that's fun. But you may end up getting extra money you can spend during your next income phase, or be able to give other players money on your coalition. So there's a lot of stuff like that I like, and it's fun. And it's really, those battle cards are kind of the spice and the sugar of the game. They're event cards, and they mix it up and they keep it from being just a little too saccharine in that regard. So you'd think I'd absolutely love this game, but I have some real criticisms here. I think first of all, the game has a lot. The game is very rulesy. I think it's at times it's more rulesy than it needs to be. For instance, the commanders aspect of it, when the commanders are captured, and like there's the whole thing where are they paroled or imprisoned, and I kind of felt like this was an aspect that maybe should have been an optional rule instead of in the core rules, and I felt like it was just a little too involved. It was more involved for what you got out of it. For what the commanders brought to the game, that aspect just seemed like it was a bit much. There are other things where, again, it just seems a little too rulesy. For instance, it says, players can agree on a short, like if players are playing the game, they can agree on when to end the game. But it's like, but it must be after 2 years. You must play it after the ending. You must play 2 more complete turns before you can end it. And it's like, well, if it's late, and each round is 45 minutes to an hour. There's 8 players, or eight factions. And it's getting late, and you may not want to do 2 more hours, or an hour and a half, 2 more hours. And so it's just like, I think you could have trusted us to know when we could end it. But it's just funny, just you have to do 2 more rounds. So that was kind of interesting. But on the whole, it just seems like there's too many little things here for what the game does. Now, again, the game, I think, generally speaking, is a fun and interesting game. But then it's got all these kind of this minutia that just, I think, doesn't serve the game as well as it needed to. Again, I commented on this on another game not too long ago, but years ago I was with the Board Game Designers Guild of Utah. I was at one of their meetings, and they're saying, when you're designing a game, sometimes less is more, and cutting out extraneous things. Stephen King, the writer, famously, of course, says, kill your darlings, get rid of the stuff you don't really need and just focus on what you do. I think this game could have benefited from a little bit of that, a little streamlining in certain areas, or again, taking some of these what are core rules and making them optional rules. I think that would have probably served the game better. And then finally, there's a kind of a thematic issue with the game, and that is the game as it is right now. And I thought I saw something somewhere where they were looking at ways of maybe changing this up a little bit, but the core game has these kind of set coalitions, right? France, Spain, Austria, the Ottoman Empire on one side, Britain, Prussia, Russia, and the Nordic states on the other side. Now, that's not really the Napoleonic Wars, right? The Napoleonic Wars, a key factor of the Napoleonic Wars is the idea that these coalitions were shifting and changing, and France was kind of imposing its will on some of these states that didn't really want to belong to the French Empire. And so there's that kind of political aspect of the game, that historical aspect of the game that's missing. Now, I've always said I don't mind fudging history a little bit to kind of improve gameplay. But this isn't so much fudging the history as it is completely ignoring a big part of it. And I think the game, I just said, it was too rulesy, but maybe there could have been a mechanism to make that, you get a little bit of that when you lose a game, you get a treaty card, but it just seemed to me if there was some way you could shift the alliances, and so make the victory condition maybe with individual factions in a way, or a way to play it that way, so that there's some kind of way outside of just one side or the other achieving victory. I don't know, I'm speculating here. But it just, as far as the coalitions go, I would have liked to have seen some ability for those guys to switch sides, some kind of diplomacy there. I would have appreciated that. What I'm getting at here is Napoleon's Imperium is kind of a mixed bag. I really liked playing it. I mean, I had fun with it. Like I say, it's Axis and Allies on the Napoleonic Wars, and I really enjoyed that. But then there's some of these other issues that I just, I have issues with. And, I was talking with my friends. I polled my friends. There were 7 of us playing, and I polled them all after we played, and I said, what'd you think? So some of them liked it, some of them didn't. And like I say, I like this game. I had fun with it. But because of all this stuff, I can't give it a solid buy it recommendation. I can see the love here, and I can see the work here. and I appreciate that. But I think it needed to be just a hair more streamlined in some of these rules that kind of get into the minutia of it, and then at the same time it needed a little bit of a mechanic to simulate the diplomatic shifting there. So I'm gonna say try it before you buy it, but because I did enjoy it and because I do like the combat and the conquering, and I'm a sucker for the theme, I'm gonna give it a positive try it before you buy it. I think some people out there who are looking for some kind of a Napoleonic Axis and Allies game that in some ways is very thematic and in others not so much, but they want something that's a little more complex, a little more depth than say Risk, but is not just hugely complex. I think people will get a kick out of this game. I think they'll have fun with it. Others, these problems may be too big for them. So again, that's my review. My judgment here is a positive try it before you buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if you like military history and these kinds of topics, I would urge you to check out my other YouTube channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about all these sorts of things. And we'd ask you to please give us a thumb on Board Game Geek for this video. That helps us out a lot as well. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing about Napoleon I never quite figured out is why did he make himself emperor when everybody voted for Pedro?
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
I love pizza.